Thank you all for attending our breakout session for C&I buildings. I guess this is really focused on how, let's say, these building and different types of C&I buildings can comply with Local 97. And I have to also mention, if you have to comply 97, chances are you have to also comply Local 88 as well, which is due end of this year. So if you're unsure about it, reach out to any of us account managers here. We can give you an idea about how to comply basically in the next steps and so forth. And thank you all for coming, especially all the amazing panelists from the different types of C&I buildings. I will just mention the names of the account managers and those and panelists as well, and I will let each one introduce themselves. Okay. Pardon me.
That's okay.
No worries.
Yeah.
Let me start off with with Nick DeAndrea. Thank you so much. Mark Heltzman, Robert Donohue, Leslie Raucher. Is that I pronounce it right? Raucher or
We'll just say Raucher.
Raucher. Thank you so much. Raucher.
Not that I know of, but maybe once upon a time.
And we have I'm Sam Ting, outreach manager. We have Gledis Korra. We have Katherine Willis, and we have Jose and Gálvez Contreras. Thank you. And so I will let's start with Nick, then Mark and Robert and Leslie to introduce yourselves if you want to share something about you, what you do, your position, if you want to. If not, I can just read it off from here and say your titles.
In a moment, but just tell us who you
Hi,
are.
Mark Heltzman, Deputy Client Manager, so this is two, we can appoint the others.
Robert Donohue, Director of Property Management for Wall Street Plaza, aka 88 Pine Street, downtown Manhattan, in the financial district.
I'm Leslie Raucher. I'm the Associate Director for Campus Sustainability and Climate Action at Barnard College. I have many hats, academic as well as buildings, facilities wise, but I'm here today because we have a campus that is all on one steam loop. And I'm been working with the accelerator to try and figure out a plan for our net zero by 2040 plan.
Thank you, Leslie. And Jose?
Hi, I'm José Gálvez Contreras, and I'm here to share a little bit about what we do as Accelerator to help support folks who want to go solar.
And I'm Gledis Korra. I'm the account manager, but also project verification specialist for the New York City Accelerator. Thank you all for coming.
And I'm Katherine Willis. I'm the account manager with the New York City Accelerator. And apologies that the projections are not working. Gladys and I are gonna read from a couple of slides. So the next item on the agenda is we're gonna go into like a little bit of an overview for each of the buildings that you see represented here. There's actually also a fourth building, the Museum of Arts and Design, which we will give a little bit of an overview about too. And then Gladys and I will take turns asking panelists more in-depth questions. So you'll get lots of good details. And then we're going to open it up for audience Q&A.
And a quick mention that, and part is about the slides not being here right now, but we will make the slides available to you. So feel free, to reach out to us, or if you don't see it, I'll get it. We will gladly send it your way.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Sure.
We'll take over the slides since we'll just read from them. So want to thank you all so much again for being here. And buildings here that have graciously agreed to participate in this session. The first building that I want to speak about is the New York Times facility, which is there, as mentioned by Mark and by Nick, their distribution center in College Point in Queens. And as you can probably tell, it's an industrial manufacturing type building. It's quite large. It's about 499,000 square feet. And it was built in 1994. So right now they're working on their compliance starting this year for 2024. And now I'm going to give you a little bit of background as to what they've been up to and what they might have in the works to do so. First of all, as perhaps some other buildings like theirs have done, they have engaged with a utility provider as well as a sustainability advisor. So they have mentioned some collaborative efforts they've done to, get experts on board and really find out about what the opportunities are for this building. So at the very beginning, they started with what you can imagine being those sort of low-hanging fruit or like quick hit type projects, including a substantial amount of initial LED lighting conversion. And spoiler alert, they're now working on the remaining LED lighting conversion, as well as other lighting and occupancy controls. A major thing that they've done to learn where they stand in terms of local law 97 compliance and actually get plans for how to proceed with it is, of course, getting an ASHRAE energy audit, which I imagine is required to some extent because of local law 87 due to their size. But of course, buildings of any size can commission studies that can be partially, or even in some cases, like fully subsidized by the city, again, depending on the type of building and the size. And not the city necessarily. NYSERDA is going to be a good reference for that. And then looking towards the future, they've been working on more capital intensive projects like an HVAC replacement project. So what do some of these past projects include? They updated their BMS system and they installed higher efficiency air compressors. And I imagine they can tell you more about the incentives and or savings associated with that. And then a couple of projects they have currently in progress or, looking towards the future is that remainder of the lighting conversion that I mentioned, which is also helpful for local law 88 compliance, which I hope is on the minds of everybody here. Because if your building is covered by local law 97, it's likely covered by local law 88 as well, because the initial threshold for a single building on a lot is 25,000 square feet. And finally, it's exciting to know that they are in the contract stage for solar installation, and they're also pursuing a battery storage project. So these are the kinds of things that, as the city is moving towards electrification, are going to be increasingly necessary, especially for industrial buildings that tend to be, fewer stories, but more square footage on the roof. And, some of the incentives and financing opportunities that they take advantage of come from Con Edison and NYSERDA for various projects, including those air compressors that I mentioned, as well as the solar and battery storage systems that they're working on. So thank you. We'll ask you more questions about that in a moment. The next building I just want to overview is the 88 Pine Street or Wall Street Plaza building that Robert mentioned. And this is a medium, actually this is quite a large office building as well. So it was built in 1973 and they're working on their compliance looking towards 2030 and beyond. So what have they done? Lots of things. They have also transitioned to LED lighting with motion sensors. They installed steam absorbers, AC elevator motors, because they used to previously be the DC kind, and VFDs to optimize their system management. They also plan to enhance thermal regulation by retrofitting window films on all the glass areas. Window projects seem to be very popular among the large office buildings in terms of thinking about longer term local law 97 compliance. Other things include they replaced all the bad steam traps and they installed silicone roof covering. And as I mentioned, that window film glass project is coming on board as soon as 2025. So lots of things in the works. The steam absorbers were these two 800-ton high-pressure steam absorbers. There were 12 of those AC elevator motors that I mentioned. And
DC motors.
I'm sorry.
DC motors converted to AC motors.
Right. And then 35 of the VFDs on pumps and motors. So lots of great stuff. We're excited to hear more from Robert, and maybe he'll also tell us a little bit about the New York City Mayor's Demand Response Program, which is one of their incentive opportunities, as well as Sea Power Energy's summer and winter program. Now I'm going to hand it off to Gledis to talk about Barnard College.
Thank you, Catherine. So our next building is Barnard College. More of a building is more, we're working on a campus approach here. The building, it's working towards compliance for 2030. As far as like local law 97 compliance, and some of the steps that have been taken so far towards compliance have been local solar feasibility analysis for their campus. Actually, we'll work with Jose, which we'll talk a little bit later about that. He actually did the portfolio solar feasibility analysis for their buildings. They also completed electrification studies for the majority of their buildings, as they committed to net zero by 2040. All three scopes of so far, they have started work on renovating and electrifying their science building, which will result in 27% reduction in Scope 1 emissions. Their main focus so far has been in the Scope 3 reduction, just because seemed to be the majority of their emission came from that, and it was something they had a little bit more control over. Still in the projects, the projects are in progress, as I said, are renovation of their science building, and several energy efficiency measures have already been taken, have been implemented throughout the year. So far, the incentives that they've been applying for has been focused through NYSERDA programs, but also a lot from the DASNY and Con Ed. We'll talk a little bit more later about a little bit more details about the incentives, their challenges, and so on. I'll be there when you get the chance to have the panel discussion. The next building is the Museum of Arts and Design. Unfortunately, Ilana wasn't able to be with us here today, but I will be going a little bit through the overview of the building, their projects. I'll be diving a little bit more deeper than with other buildings, because she's not able to discuss, but hopefully in some future events, she'll be able to talk about how this project's affected her building energy efficiency, also local 97 compliance. As far as the Museum of Art and Design, this was built in the renovation happened around 2008, I believe. They're working towards compliance for 2024. It's around 60,000 square feet. And they initially started taking their steps towards compliance in 2021. The interesting part about bringing all these different building, different types of building, different types of institutions, that each one of them has a very unique way of complying with Local 97. So I'm really excited to go into the panel discussion, but one thing that we noticed with the Museum of Art and Design was the different grants that they applied and they used, considering it's an art institution, not for profit. So they started with taking advantage of Frankenthaler Climate Initiative, which they used to commission an energy study in 2021. They also used this grant fund for writing an RFP for one of their capital projects that is still in the process to be implemented, and also implementation of the chiller project. They've used, since then, they started implementing all the low cost measure or easy fixes that the energy study came with. Some of them were different, like resetting, adjusting HVAC controls, that they already implemented all of them, and kept the one that they're finding a little bit more challenged with. It's the capital projects. And some of these projects are chiller replacement with the heat recovery technology, and also heat pump for the domestic hot water. They have already almost done the lighting upgrades. There's also a capital project just because of the type of building, and the lighting is kind of important for the museum and to showcase the work. But they're almost done with doing the lighting upgrades. So they're working with towards ensuring that, you know, they're in compliance with Local 88. And super important just because they want to pursue the good faith effort. They won't be able to finish all the projects in time to actually ensure compliance with Local 97. So when time comes to file for Local 97, they want to be able to take advantage of good faith efforts. And one of the requirements is actually to make sure that they're in compliance with Local 88. So they're trying to prioritize project based off that. Easy fixes, Local 88 compliance is a requirement for good faith effort. And currently working with the two major capital projects, which is the chiller replacement with the heat recovery, and also the heat pump for the domestic hot water. These were prioritized also because of the greenhouse gas emission that they brought to the museum, especially the chiller replacement with the heat recovery system seemed to bring is the most largest like capital project they have, but also it brought a lot of like greenhouse gas emission reduction to help them comply with Local 97. They have been using different incentives and grant programs, starting with the Department of Cultural Affairs, which have been the majority of their funding from, Frank Thaler Climate Initiative that was focused on their energy, commissioning the energy study, RFP writing for the chiller replacement, the New York State Council of the Arts for the chiller, and from the New York State Dormitory Authority. They also have been applied for the National Endowment for the Humanities for the heat pump project for the domestic hot water. So it's been interesting because they've been using the NYSERDA project, NYSERDA incentive program for like resetting all their HVAC systems and controls. They've been using Con Ed, and thinking use Con Ed for like lighting, but also for the chiller replacement, and all these different other grant programs. And that's been one of the main challenges. Besides the fact that this is a very small team that it doesn't have the knowledge about the equipment, service providers, what they need to do. So that was like the main challenge that they came up with. So the way that the other issue was also the grant, writing these grants and all the paperwork and everything. And the way that the reimbursement happens with this, it was just it was pretty difficult for them to manage all of this. But the way that they've been trying to face these challenges so far is really kind of work with different resources that are they're available. So partnerships like with New York City Accelerator, we've been working together to facilitate a lot of like this connection with the service provider for implementation of these programs. Other constant like updates about the local law and compliance and all the different incentives that are coming up. There's new programs always coming up, so always trying to keep that focus. Okay, these are the projects you're implementing. These are some programs that could be applicable. Another part has been partnership with the Con Ed incentives. That's been also with the Con Ed to work to, move forward with the incentive process for the chiller replacement, and also keeping momentum by constant check-ins with their team. That seems to constantly checking in, making sure that everything is moving forward. And yeah, it's definitely a multi-year process. So it's a little bit difficult, but I think they're on a good way to at least, use the penalty mitigation through the good faith effort while they are implementing the capital projects that will bring them towards compliance with Local 97. So thanks again. I went a little bit longer with for that specific building, just because we're not able to ask Ilana any more questions. But before we move to the panel discussion, I just want to give a moment to Jose to talk about our solar offering. We have two of our building representatives here. One of them is in the process to bid solar, and the other one we completed a solar feasibility assessment. So we just want to show everyone what the process is and how does it look like to work with New York City Accelerator to complete this solar feasibility assessment.
Awesome. All right. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is José Gálvez Contreras, and I'm a New York City Accelerator solar specialist. What I just want to, before just diving in deep on how do we assess solar, I just want to say that the New York City Accelerator is such a great program because, it brings together folks like you who have buildings that are interested in making your buildings energy efficient, and you're connected to specialists who actually, understand the process. So Accelerator really, helps you understand what are the carbon emissions that your building has at the moment, helps you understand like how can you make your building energy efficient by taking several measures and steps. And then the New York City Accelerator itself allows you to educate yourselves and those that in your teams about how to comply with the local laws that will impact your building in terms of the carbon tax. And essentially, then you can be connected to service providers that will help you achieve the goals that you aspire to make your building much more energy efficient. Part of the work that we do at the New York City Accelerator as well is that we provide solar energy technical assistance. So it's a very specialized product that we offer to buildings like yours, like to commercial, industrial, manufacturing buildings, but also to affordable housing or multifamily homes in the city, where we provide a solar energy assessment of what does the roof of your building look like, how much solar capacity that roof has, and we design the system. We provide a mock design of the system, understanding the shading of other buildings, adjacent neighbors, or obstructions on the roof, and also what are the requirements based on the New York City Fire Department or the Department of Buildings. And when we create this cost-benefit analysis, we show, we create a path that gives you an understanding of how much you will be saving based on your electricity usage from the solar production, in addition to understanding what incentives your buildings can capture. So for the type of buildings that we're speaking about, commercial, manufacturing building, and industrial, there are several incentives that can help reduce the cost of solar. So from the federal tax incentives that you are for sure granted about 30% of tax credit from the initial cost of that system, to the state tax incentives, to your accelerated depreciation of the system that you will be installing in the roof, and not to mention the New York Sun incentive, which is a state incentive that helps pay for the upfront cost of solar. So we will provide you with a whole assessment or an analysis that will tell you how the system will pay for itself in a number of period over a period of time. The New York City Accelerator also can help you connect to service providers, which are listed on our website. But if you are interested in working with us, if you're affordable housing, we can help you develop a procurement process where we would help release an RFP on your behalf to bring the installers that you can then assess and see if you want to work with them to install solar on your roof. So in essence, that's what, the solar product that we offer, will help your building and support it in understanding the solar potential of your roof.
Thank you so much, Jose. And again, please seek us out after this, conversation if you want to have follow-up information, or even just to get, a business card so that we can connect you to the right person to answer your questions. For the next 20 minutes or so, we're gonna do a little bit panel Q&A, and then we'll open it up to those questions that you might have. So if you have a burning question, be sure to write it down on one of these index cards just for your reminder. And then we'll do that audience Q&A at the end. But to kick off our panel, let's go ahead and ask kind of to have these representatives walk you through like what sort of was the beginning and middle and eventually like end and future for their local law 97 compliance journey. So we invite all the panelists to respond to any of the questions that we ask. But just to kick it off, what were the initial steps that your company or organization or building took to understand and to meet your local law 97 requirements? And Nick and Mark, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot since you're closest to me, you gotta tell us how you started on this journey.
I'll fill the gap. Yeah, so the New York Times set the ambitious sustainability goals. And long before that, we were already doing some projects at the plant just to reduce costs, like, PLC I mentioned. And they were good ROIs, and we did about 50% of the plant. The rest of the 50% balance was not good ROIs, so we didn't do it. But now it's more compelling because we're 7. So we were doing a lot of small things that made sense business-wise. ROI driven, and, now it's more sustainability with ROI in mind, right? So it's kind of like some of these projects are pushing to open, really trying to get the capital. Still have to make a business case, but it's, like I said, at times, set ambitious goals, write about it a lot, so. That's all completion of the plan. And as you mentioned before, we started out with some small projects. Active plan for air leaks and air compressors. Place the old units and put new ones in, and that's kind of where we started. And now it's more of the capital intensive programs like the solar and battery storage. We just got approval for that. Contract also with balance and 50% of lighting, LED lights. So they're very capital intensive. Engineering studies to prove them out, and it makes sense for the plan. So that's next step would probably be us looking at. We have mechanical studies ongoing to look at the HVAC that's on top of it. Pretty capital intensive.
We got 36 units, so it's pretty expensive to replace them. So we got to do the math.
Okay.
Fine versus improve, replacing them. So it's a math issue. We got to figure it out. But also, it extends beyond the building because we also this thing into EV vehicles. So that's another way of trying to combat getting over to electric. So
Yeah, outside of the buildings, the EV transitions, which we saw. Should say that. So we're doing what we can. And just a big shout out to some of they've been partners with us, answering phone calls, doing calculations.
big building and need a lot of LED.
We're happy to hear. We're happy to share the network that we've all working on. It's really great. Thank you so much. Robert or Leslie, do either of you want to chime in with the beginning of your story?
I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of research, seminars, a lot of meetings. You got to plan, and the hardest part is to explain to either your owners or board to what's the ROI on investing on certain projects or whatever incentives you get from like Con Edison or NYSERDA. And once you able to get all that data, which you just said, it's a lot of data you got to present to make them move forward with these projects, and you got to weigh it out. And luckily, I've had a lot of luck because we've done a lot of projects, and they've proven to definitely get you money's back on return on investment.
Yeah, I would say that Local Law 97 actually was my entry point into thinking about our campus and building systems in something other than, your run-of-the-mill sustainability person would know about. I had never read law before. I had never really dug into trying to understand our mechanical systems. I have no engineering background. But I knew enough to try and do basic building upgrades, at the time that the law came out. I would say when I was able to figure out, after talking to colleagues at St. John's and throughout the state, how to figure out what our potential cost was going to be, the risk to the college, this was the first time we actually were able to really get the attention of the decision makers, the head of capital planning and operations. So they felt enough pressure coming from this law to actually start moving in a way. And so this law came out, 2019? It's 2024, and we just announced in February a commitment to net zero by 2040. So, sure if any of you work at an institution, you know how slowly we go. But, you know, it's definitely progress. And, you know, from a personal standpoint, I'm a very different person with understanding to buildings and emissions today than I was back then. So it's been a really fun learning experience for me.
It's great. Yeah, I feel like everyone's having to learn new territories, whether it's legal interpretation or
Oh, the IRA tax, oh my God. Tax law? I didn't sign up for
Well,
that.
printing papers and distributing them, that was building management and that, it's built to make this much production involvement, as much building behind the scenes at.
right.
It's a lot, you learn as you go as well.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's a lot of competing interests,
Yeah.
whether it's like, you know, the urgency of maybe equipment that's nearing the end of its useful life, or it's being phased out through legal needs, like the oil and the ore ban, things like that, versus, you know, taking advantage of hot new incentives or, you know, the ROI opportunities, low hanging fruit versus like higher, you know, carbon capturing, like intensive capital projects. So can you say a little bit about like how does your organization prioritize projects in any sort of way? Or are there any projects that have stood out to you as being a particularly effective one? We'll start with you.
In general, it's what is the most broken. You know, we are definitely an institution that is trying to switch away from just band-aiding everything that needs to be done to actually looking at our deferred maintenance. You know, I would say one of our big accomplishments was actually, you know, working through with all of the deferred maintenance projects and figuring out how can we use that upcoming opportunity to create progress for our goals, because otherwise it wasn't going to happen unless we got grants for it to do it. You know, the other thing that I would say is really exciting for us, you know, and definitely was not just a deferred maintenance project, but we've got renovating our science building. And, you know, over the course of the 2 years of planning, you know, our office kept pushing and pushing for different studies to be done. We worked with through an NYSERDA. What is the new name of the community heat pump grant? Yeah, is it the CN? Yeah, okay, the CNI, you know, to pay for the studies to get it done. And, you know, eventually what it came down to was $6 million between an electric building and a non-electric building. You know, for some institutions, that's not a lot. For me, when you're talking $250 million for a building, what is $6 million more? But if you're the you know, the manager for the project, it's a lot. So, you know, he got the funding through the board of trustees. And by got the funding, we don't have it yet, but it's gonna happen.
Robert?
So one of the biggest projects, well, I'm gonna start with the VFD project, variable frequency drives. Everyone familiar with them? No? So these drives go on big motors or any motors. Con Edison gave us an incentive. It was a $1.2 million job, and Con Edison gave us $825,000. So presented to the landlords, listen, and our ROI was going to be less than roughly 2 years. So we wound up doing that product. We saved even more money because the drives, you're not with these motors, you don't have to run them 100%. You could ramp them up slowly and use them as you need, especially on cooling towers. Our cooling towers used to be full blown all the time. Now we have VFDs. We can watch the weather, our engineers, and they can regulate now these motors to run what's needed instead of running all the time. And getting that incentive from Con Ed was huge. And it was a no-brainer. And, we also did, which we had old carrier chillers, absorbers, and we changed those out. And when they told us how much we would save, they always say 20, 30%. It actually wound up being like 50%. And it was so bad that Con Edison Steam Department came after the project was done at our first summer online. They were coming and they were changing the meters because they were saying something's wrong. So my chief engineer never said anything. Then they came back like a month later, came again, they said there's something wrong. My chief engineer finally said, guys, we have new chillers. Because they were saying the consumption's wrong. We're not getting the right consumptions. The consumption was so low compared to the old chillers. It made a huge difference. And they are, and I think our bills, team was then like 2.3 million, we're down like under $1 million now. Wow, it's a big difference. So when you present that to a board or your landlord or your owners, and you show them that data, they have faith in you, and you just keep, all right, let's do this project, let's do this project, let's do that project.
Sorry, what kind of chillers did you install?
Broad USA, high pressure steam absorbers. The old ones were carriers. We actually still have them. We use them once in a while because we got rid of one of them because it was not working properly. We kept them, so we have them as redundancy. And we created actually a whole new engine room in the basement. This way, the next 25, 30 years, when you want to take them out, they're easy to take them out, pull the old ones out, put the new ones in. The carriers were good too, and it's still ran. I mean, the life expectancy was 25, 30 years, and the building's 53 years old. The next thing too is maintenance. If you have good, take care of things and maintain everything, all that also less all of it.
Yeah, I think our story is the same, you know, it's ROIs, incentives, rebates, taxes, and prioritize the projects that make sense for us. It's almost similar with the story, you know, the these are twice the price as these, you know, but I started, grants and made it possible to sort of transition. And then we get the maintenance and people savings, so pretty good all. The same thing with solar, you know, it's with incentives to tax. Really, probably looking at that. It's a $1 million project, and we just, I don't think we pulled the plug on that. So I think it's, you know, I think everybody's got kind of the same story.
So that's how we prioritize it. Biggest concerns, biggest bang for your buck on the long-term sustainability projects, you know, versus the quick ROI ones. Now we're looking further at the one that gives us the longest sustainability effect. You know, we know what's down the road and what's coming, so projects going to be more focused on meeting that criteria. So it's a little bit different than what you should do. So, and you want to take advantage and all the credits and all the incentives before you go away. So that's always a good thought process.
But our challenge with planters, it's we're already 90%. So there's a little opportunity for us to get future savings, you know, other than to get it sold. I don't see it, but it's a challenge. We'll get to talk about the change.
Yeah, so
There's different incentives for just one more day.
yeah, that's a little bit into the incentives now. I think I really wanna talk about all the different incentives that you used for all the measures, what resources you use, like grants, incentives, and how did they help?
As I mentioned, we've used NYSERDA funding to do the studies on our steam loop. Definitely got Part A. I know we applied for Part B, but we don't actually know what happened with that. But really, it has, you know, allowed us to set a footprint, you know, create the very high level map that we now need to drill into. We've also gotten funding through the New York Dormitory Authority, DASNY, for HVAC upgrades. And we do try and get the Con Ed incentives anytime we're redoing a space, you know, upgrading lights and such. I would say that there is a lot more money out there, but it is incredibly difficult to heard, you know, the consultants, the project managers, the, you know, owners rep, the, you know, people on our team, you know, to get it all done and in on time. It has, you know, we've lost a number of opportunities to just not being able to get our ducks in a row to hit submit. You know, and then as I just mentioned, we're looking into the IRA, and I'm sure with all of you struggling to figure out what it is and how to get it.
I said before, a couple minutes, it's a lot of work, a lot of research, a lot of meetings. And you got to stay on top of it. Like, you got to take advantage of the incentives. I luckily became friendly with Con Ed, and so like whenever something comes up, hey, you want to do this project? You want to do this? And
That's my Gledis.
yeah. Yeah. And take advantage of whatever you can. Because that benefits, that's how you go back to you, people are paying, and you show them, this is what we're gonna get. This is what we can save.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's nicer, it's not, it's the IRA. You know, I'm just using resources like Accelerator and utility provider to help search these out. It's incentives and rebates. Working with our engineer to you know, to get the topics out. So, you know, once we get past that engineering phase, then it's, you know, lots of dollars are out there for the fund. It's
Yeah, I see it similar. Yeah.
Why I'm here.
I see a similar thing, the different resources that you used, you know, incentives, sure, but the different partnerships they use is like not just as an accelerator, but also the different engineering companies that you work with, energy consultants. So it's kind of like the partnership between like incentive programs, New York City Accelerator, different service providers to just like help you move forward with the whole compliance pathway and all the hurdles and everything. So
Financing mechanism, financing mechanism.
yeah.
We didn't have guidance with NRG, we used WSP as an engineering, big companies that guide us. Without them guiding us, we wouldn't be here. It's just so complicated, and so there's so much out there that you don't even know. You know, it's just learning this whole process. We didn't know anything about solar, but we started, and now we're pretty much not an expert, but I could probably tell you a lot about it. We want to learn from it, but without their guidance, we would be struggling. To do it on your own is very difficult, but okay, that's my advice.
And NRG is a utility provider. They also deal with them as far as they have an advisory team. They also have a sustainability team, and they also do like demand response. So we're with them constantly, you know, based on what projects we're working on. Mark mentioned WSP, they're an engineering firm since we built the plant. They know all the facility inside and out. So anything that we think about doing, we run it's theirs. We'll come back with the drawings and we could do this, we do that. The cheapest way to do it is the best way to do it. So, you know, we'll do all of that up front, and then we'll work with our partners. So, you know, we've got to fund with the DOB. That's they're going to say, I say no introduction to you. Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of resources out there. Just I mean, so they're all offering advice to support.
To do it on your own is, it's difficult.
It's a lot of paperwork.
Yeah, and you're probably not gonna do it right as much as you think you are. It's just very, very difficult, but we trust, you know, you develop trust with NRG and WSP, you trust the partners you're with, and they guide you to the best place you could be, so best way we found out to do it.
Now I want to go a little bit more, to just close the panel discussion. What type of best practices can you share for maintaining momentum and achieving the long-term compliance goals?
To go.
What's best practices? What are your best practices that you can share with us to keep momentum and continue it, like.
In spite of the challenges, which we expect.
I personally stay involved in a lot of seminars and try to stay ahead, like, you always got prepared, you do budgets this year, you gotta do budgets for next year now. So you gotta stay ahead of the curve, you gotta try to plan and be ahead of that curve.
We're doing 2 years out.
Yeah, so he's, you 2 years out, and like Chill project, I just told you, I worked on that project 2 years before we even started it. And, EFD, same thing, almost 2 years, you have to just constantly stay ahead and allocate some time to do some of these seminars, hook up with some of these energy consultant people. If you have a good one, they'll also direct you in the right direction as well.
Yeah, I agree with 100%. Just talking to people, process and take advantage of the resources that are out there. It's, like I said, we print in this paper, so we don't write them. We just, but we learned a lot about local 97 sustainability over the last couple of years.
Also, too, they're constantly, and I seen, they changed the curriculum several times since they started. So like you're going one direction and you go on this other, like, oh, like I just went on one this past year. Kind of STEAM, they're now gonna they want to push buildings in the near future to go on district STEAM. So anyone that's on oil or even some electric, they're going to start they're gonna redo the whole plant by Stuytown, and they're gonna start using river water. I sent you guys slide, I guess you can't share it today, but I saw that, like, I'm going this direction, now I gotta go this direction. So, yeah, it definitely changes, and that's another reason why you gotta constantly be aware of what those changes might be. Luckily, I've always been on course.
You don't know what you don't know, right? Until you start talking to people and educate yourself about it. So you can make good decisions.
I have a very different perspective, which is to, just keep pushing. Keep saying there's, $2 million available. Are we going to try and get it? No, why not? And I've been at the college, quite a long time now, to the point where new people come in and I definitely, push my agenda as if it's the agenda. And sometimes that really works. Trying to stay positive, trying to stay in the mindset that we're going to actually get this done, can start changing minds and understanding, unfortunately, that progress is slow. But really just, I wasn't going to be part of the science building project, unless I made myself part of it. And, I can't tell you if we got part B for that NYCERTA grant, because like I was no longer in the weekly meetings. How I dropped out, I don't know, but I achieved what I needed to do and have plenty of other things to do day to day. So, I obviously check in, make sure things are going well from time to time, but, really, really pushing, being so passionate about it that everyone else has to, kind of at least listen to you. It is really how I push forward when I am not the decision makers. I'm not the budgeters. I'm not the one who, is even presenting these ideas to the decision makers.
Yeah, we work with as many influencers and other stakeholders as we do decision makers. So thank you all so much for your contributions. We really appreciate it. We only have like 10 minutes left. I realize it is so hard. So here's what we're gonna do. And also we have to get out as soon as we're done because there's literally a class in here. So just be prepared that after 10 minutes, we will all take all of our stuff that we brought with us and do our chit chat in the hallway.
People, but.
Yeah, they're like, so what we're gonna ask is please keep your question super duper short and also pertinent to like the discussion as a whole, not necessarily a single person up here. They will answer to the extent that they feel comfortable, but we're gonna do like that side, this side, this side as much as we can. So any questions, like raise your hand. Yes.
You want to find out for you guys, your panelists, have you considered with the smart, for VFDs, you considered smart pumps and pump management systems?
Well, Con Ed has never offered an incentive for that, so that's why we stuck with VFDs.
Very incentive driven. Anybody on the side want to ask a question? Back row?
Thanks for sharing your experience. I have a question regarding the incentive because the incentive is a big factor in ROI. So what do you think about the market trend about the incentives? Because it's a difficult process for application, legal, and if you feel that applying certain date, you lose the incentive and become lost. And you have to hire legal team to review these documents. There is any factor like apply the artificial intelligence or something like that to ease the process or communication with the government to ease the process for the incentives?
My advice is to hook up with an energy consultant. You know, they have the boilerplate paperwork for all this, and they also have the relationship, because this is what they're doing. Not like you, me, or them every day. So if you get a good, I have an excellent company, and they've never failed on anything we've done. So you let them handle it. So they work off a commission on what they save you on the project.
Okay, so for those of you who have centrifugal chiller plants, have you guys considered any energy optimization solutions other than the conventional BMS system?
We don't have central chiller.
You know,
Don't know about our chillers.
You have a BMS on it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Once. Yeah, thanks.
Organizations that are capital constrained, what funding options are available besides, say, DASNY? Or those ones that you actually utilize?
So for a savings, and it was like not as terribly complicated a submission, you could try Recharge New York. Which, you know, that's NIFA, and it's giving us about $40,000 in savings a year for 7 years.
They're funding them, rather?
No, it's just, I'm telling you how to save money. Yeah, like, we're just, you know, we're saving money on electricity. You know, which I would love to say we're spending that on other sorts of projects. But I thought it's like a very easy one of these funding sources to start with.
My question, if people wasn't clear, was not focused on incentives and grants, but more alternatives to capital, capital allocation. Let's see above.
I will say we have financing specialists at the accelerator, so definitely get in touch with us. We'd be happy to speak with them. They know like kind of latest and greatest of all whatever sort of opportunities are out there. I know there are case loans and that kind of thing. I saw a few women with their hands up. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all for putting this together. It's so helpful. I work for a nonprofit that helps industrial manufacturing in North Brooklyn. And so we deal with mom and pop, manufacturers and larger legacy manufacturers. And unfortunately, this local law is really detrimental to manufacturing because really the carbon footprint is the production portion of the manufacturing and in the building. I know there is nothing that we could do. But right now there's a lot of consultants that are coming out of the woodwork and saying, we could help you with this, we could help you with that. So we're the resource to these manufacturers, in our local neighborhood. And a lot of them are saying, you know what, this law, we're going to be out of business. We can't do it. It's impossible. So we want to provide them with the proper resources, like Accelerator is their first step. But, they're getting left and right consultants saying, oh, we'll fill this out for you. How do you really navigate who's gonna, be legit and help you through this process?
We've worked with trusted vendors and partners. So, but you're right. I mean, we're manufacturing heavy production costs. It's difficult. I mean, I don't see, all the money in engineering projects that we've done. I don't see how we could possibly have a threshold.
Plus we start printing a couple of days a week, which is an option.
I would like to add for you that, if you're already in touch with the accelerator, I think that's the very first good step for you to like figure out who can your trusted vendors be. But also you said that you work with a group of organizations or buildings and manufacturers. So probably as the representative of all of them, bringing them all together to one space and having them all like hire or have one specific, trusted vendor that can help them all, that will reduce the cost from the entire group itself, like individually, by having one single vendor that can assess all of the buildings. But I would say start with the accelerator first, and then with the accelerator, you will learn, what are the low-hanging fruits that you can take in order to reduce the carbon emissions of those buildings. And like solar, for example, is, if the manufacturers do not have the capacity to build solar themselves, we can connect you to PPA provider that could develop the solar on top of the roof. The building will still get the carbon emission reduction from the solar panels being installed in that roof, and you will be able to still benefit from the local the property tax abatement, as well as other incentives that can help reduce some of those carbon taxes.